what is your reaction to the outrage on Twitter?
I would call this manufactured outrage, started by a gentleman called Eusebius McKaiser, who starts off on Twitter saying he's not sure whether he heard me correctly. Well, a halfway decent journalist or public commentator would have checked with me, had he heard it decently before going public. But he didn't check with me. It wouldn't have been hard. I carry a cell phone. Lots of people know me. He could have found out without too much difficulty. But he didn't bother. He manufactured an outrage, which happens quite frequently on Twitter. It's one of the problems of the internet, of social media. The fact is, I listed a number of people that I'd encountered in a long career in journalism who I thought were smart politicians, clever. That doesn't, and I mentioned Verwoerd. I do think Verwoerd was a clever politician. Does not mean I admire him. I've spent my whole bloody life and ended up getting fired, criticizing him for being wrong, but he was clever. He was clever. He was an effective speaker. That's all I said. Now, to misinterpret that is frankly mischievous. It's an outrageous, mischievous interpretation.
But why would you choose, why say Hendrik Verwoerd as part of the list of people that you would mention? Why not mention other leaders?
I did. I mentioned quite a few. I mentioned quite a few. I just included him in an incomplete list. I just happened to mention it, and I made a qualifier. I said, and surprisingly, Hendrik Verwoerd, he was not a fool. That's all I was saying. But I was actually building up to make a point that apart from smartness or apart from effective public speaking, as an orator, I was making the point that I thought Helen Zille was, in terms of political strategy, the smartest that I'd encountered in my 64 years as a journalist. That was the point I was making. But of course, Mr. Eusebius McKaiser chose to interpret it differently and to start what I call a manufactured outrage.
When you consider the outrage that was caused by the former president of the SRC at Wits when he said he admired Hitler for his leadership style, do you not think that perhaps your comment might have been interpreted in the same way, because that's how many people saw it? And that's
I don't think many people saw it that way. I think it was manufactured. I think it was a manufactured outrage. Quite simple. Somebody with mischievous intent did that. Presumably, I don't know, I'm not a member of the DA, I don't belong to any party, I never have and never will, because I'm a journalist. Now, I get angry, I get really upset when people go public, and now this happens more and more on the social network. Do not do the basics of checking facts and getting an opinion back before they go public. That is very basic to my philosophy as a journalist. Mr. McKaiser made no attempt to do that.